Hi, I'm Patricia Robinette, author of The Rape of Innocence, Female Genital Mutilation and Circumcision in the United States of America. I'm going to read you a little excerpt from my book. This is from the chapter titled, A Child's Garden of Death. I was 42, living with my boyfriend Tom in the Oregon countryside. My mother and stepfather had come to visit from Texas. After a big breakfast, we all four leaned back in our chairs at the dining room table just to relax, and Tom said something about how much he'd enjoyed his childhood. "Oh, not me," I said. "I hated being a child." Oops. Whoops. Stone silence for an eternal moment. I knew I was in trouble when Mama sighed loudly. Then she smiled sweetly, first to Nick on her right, and then to Tom on her left, enlisting their support. Her gaze returned to me. Lifting herself up and forward, with the palms of her hands flat on the table, she tilted her head to one side. "But you were always such a happy little girl," she said, in her crisp English accent. "I always wanted to be dead," I said. When we lived together all those years ago, Mama and I never sat chatting over a cup of tea as she did with her friends. Nobody in our family talked much at all. I thought of our house as a Cold War zone. She and I had known each other more than 4 decades at the time of the conversation with Tom and Nick at the breakfast table, in the dining room, in the house, in the country, but we still didn't know each other at all. Now at last we shared some time and tea and had a grown-up talk. Everything I knew about communication I'd learned from her, so it was possible that she honestly did not know how unhappy I had been. She honestly hadn't known. We sat looking at each other in a dense cloud of silence. Dare I talk about it now? I might as well. Things couldn't get much worse. This was one of my few clear memories of childhood. It was still as fresh at age 42 as it was when it happened, and the words came tumbling out like a report, without emotion. "When I was very young," I said, "I went to the kitchen in the middle of the night to get a knife to cut out my heart, but I was too little to reach the sharp knives. All I could find was a butter knife, and I knew that the rounded blade wouldn't work, so I went back to bed." Silence. We 4 sat like stones around the breakfast table. For once, Mama had no quick retort, didn't attempt to contradict me, reject, or ridicule me. Wow! Miraculously, she seemed to actually have heard what I'd said. Everyone else at the table surely had. Simple, honest words go deep. Suicidal ideation is what they call it, when you have a plan and a clear picture of how to kill yourself. And I'd had a fine plan. I would lay on my bed, hold the knife straight up with the sharp tip of the blade between my ribs. It would hurt for a moment, but then I would pull hard and fast with both hands. I wouldn't feel anything as the knife pierced my heart. Once outside my body, I reasoned, I would fly free. So we adults sat quietly contemplating the story of a child who had long ago wanted to kill herself. I still could not and would not remember for many years why it was that I had wanted to die, but Mama offered one very important clue that same morning before our breakfast talk ended. "You never were the same after your surgery," she said quietly. "You mean after my tonsillectomy?" I asked, for at that point I had no memory of any other surgeries. "Yes," she stammered, looking down at her tightly clasped hands. It would be 15 years more, a few years after her death, before I would discover the nature of the surgery she referred to that day. But once I found out and brought it to conscious awareness and released the fear around it, my death wish vanished. Stay tuned for the next exciting adventure in The Rape of Innocence by Patricia Robinette.